Hello. Happy October. How's it going? Welcome to yet another crime dive. My name is Crystal Sky, and if you're anything like me, you find yourself drawn to true crime cases. So, yeah, that's what we talk about here. If you also are drawn to true crime, and you want to feel better about your makeup skills, you should absolutely, if you want, like, subscribe, and let's hang out together every other Tuesday where I will take a deep dive look into a true crime case while slapping on the old clown paint. So yes, we are officially in October. How are you doing? How's your fall going thus far? As you can see, I updated the set here. Nothing too much. I actually have a bunch of different colored spider webs on my table here, but yeah, you cannot see it on camera at all, so I did all that for nothing. But yeah, anyway, how are things going? How is the fall season treating you? We are finally starting to cool down here, so that's been really nice. How's it been with you? I hope things are just going very lovely and well for you. So today's case is actually a requested case, and it actually came from my dad. He actually heard about this case from a woman at a shop that he frequents. I believe she works there, but she, let him know about this case after he told her about my channel. And so I decided to take a look into this case and wanted to talk about it with you. So thank you so much to Taryn McNeil and my dad for throwing this case my way and making me aware of it. It's just so sad. Today's case is a case of a missing, well, he's not a teen today, but he was an older teen when he went missing. Today, we will be talking about the case of Logan Schiendelman. He was 19 when he went missing, and it's so sad because Logan was experiencing a little bit of turmoil, in his life when he disappeared. And it's so heartbreaking because there's like no leads or clues. This is an active case. Logan, as of the recording of this video, is still missing. And it's bizarre. Like, the circumstances in which he disappeared are also just very weird. So yeah, I came across this case after it was suggested to me and wanted to talk about it with y'all. As far as trigger warnings, there's nothing graphic or brutal or anything. We'll be talking a little bit about racial issues and whatnot, but nothing graphic or anything like that. And so, without further ado, let's get into this case and let's talk about Logan. So Logan Drew Schiendelman was born on June 27th, 1996 in Olympia, Washington. So Logan was biracial. His father was Saudi Arabian and his mother, Hannah, was half black and half white with Louisiana roots. Hannah's mother was Virginia Ginny Gibo or Gibo. I wasn't sure how to pronounce her last name. I could not find a single interview that said Ginny's last name, but it's G-E-B-O. That's her last name, but we'll call her Ginny. So Hannah's mother, Ginny, herself was white and Hannah's father was black. And it is said that Hannah's father's side of the family was not really in her life a whole lot. She did not have any connection or communication with that side of her family. And I guess Ginny and Hannah's dad, I don't know if they broke up before Hannah was born, but yeah, they were not together, and it is said that's one of the reasons that Hannah's father's side of the family was not in her life a whole lot. She was primarily raised by her mother. Logan also had an older half-sister named Chloe, and her father was white, and it said that she was more like white passing. Like, you would see her and you'd think she was just a white person. And it is said Hannah, I couldn't find any photos of Hannah, but it said Hannah is also white passing. So yeah, the theory is that Chloe is, pretty white passing. Now, it is said Logan's father was not a part of his life either. And Hannah did not have a relationship with Logan's father. It wasn't really a committed long-term relationship or anything. Hannah was described as a free spirit of sorts, And she had met Logan's father in her early 20s. And this was obviously after she had Chloe. Logan's father, as I said earlier, was from Saudi Arabia, so he was Middle Eastern, and he was here in the States, specifically in Washington State, on some sort of work visa. He was an engineer and he was over here on some kind of project. And in the short time he was here, he met Hannah and, they dated a little bit and they conceived Logan. But it is said Logan's father went back to Saudi Arabia well before Logan was born. Like I said, he was here on a limited visa and he was here working on some specific engineering project. And, when that wrapped up, he went back home to his native country. And we're not even sure if Logan's father was aware Hannah was pregnant, if he's aware that he had a son. Nobody really knows because, it was I believe it was shortly after Logan was conceived that he, went back home. And there's just not a lot of information about Logan's father. I don't even think anyone knows his name. Like, I couldn't find any articles that talked about his name, and there were some family members that were saying, like, yeah, we don't even know his name. Now, when Hannah was 23 years old, she decided to go to Seattle to attend art school. And it is after she leaves for art school that Logan and Chloe would be primarily raised by Ginny. Now, Hannah was already living with her mother when she had Chloe and Logan, so it was, Ginny was already in their lives and, was helping them and stuff. But when Hannah went off to art school, they actually went through the whole legal process of Ginny, I don't know if like adopting or like a guardianship over them. And that was so that Logan and Chloe could go on Ginny's health insurance. Now, Ginny lived in Tumwater, Washington, and worked at the Washington State Department of Ecology. And like I said, Hannah was living here when she had Chloe and then Logan. But yeah, when she was 23, she decided to go to art school in Seattle. Logan also had I think a step-grandfather named Bill. It was a man living with Ginny, but there wasn't a whole lot of talk about him. I wasn't sure if maybe it was just Ginny's boyfriend, if she was married to him. I was very confused, and I wasn't sure if Bill lived there when Logan and Chloe were there. I was a little confused about that. Now, it is said Hannah would then live in Olympia for most of Logan's life, and she was very active in her children's lives. It's not like she was some young mom who dumped her kids off on her mom and never did anything with them. It is said that Hannah was very much involved in her children's lives. Olympia is right next to Tumwater, I guess, so the children were not very far away from their mother at all. And that was the situation that, Logan grew up in. Now, Ginny described her grandson as very bright, very polite, and growing up just surrounded by family and friends. But remember, just one part of his family, because we don't know anything about his father. And if you think about it, there's even more of his family missing because they didn't know anything about Hannah's father. Or at the very least, he wasn't really in the picture, and his whole side of the family was not really in the picture either. And we will discuss that a little bit more later. Ginny described her grandson, quote, "He was just a smart, funny person." It is said Logan really loved music, loved writing poetry, and I just thought this was a little interesting fact. Logan was also allergic to peanuts, and I'm not sure how severe his allergy was, but he was supposed to carry an EpiPen with him at all times, just in case. Now, Logan's family said not only was he, polite and just, really bright, he was also very charismatic. Logan was one of those guys that it is said could just, be friends with anyone. He had that, that natural charisma, that some people have, that je ne sais quoi, if you will, that sort of just makes him very personable and friendly. And that's how Logan was described. It said he had lots of friends at high school, was very personable and outgoing. Logan attended Tumwater High School, and here he was a star defensive back on the high school's football team, and he actually helped lead the team to the state championships for 2 years. And I mentioned this earlier, right? Logan was also described as being popular. I mean, you got this good-looking kid, very charismatic, and he's on the football team. Yeah, so I said he was very popular, had lots of friends at high school, on top of being a very good student. It is said Logan was one of those kids that didn't really have to try all that hard to get really good grades in school, And it just seems like high school was, for the most part, a pretty good, enjoyable experience for Logan. His great aunt Mary Ware, said, quote, "I don't know anybody that did not like Logan." However, it is while, Logan is in high school that he starts having sort of an identity crisis is how it was described, and it had to do with his race. Logan was certainly, at the very least, having questions about his background, about his, ethnic identity. And, it doesn't help that, the vast majority of the population in Tumwater is white, right? So, Logan grew up surrounded by white people, white kids and neighbors. He was raised predominantly by the white side of his family. And as he's, entering the teenage years and kind of thinking about stuff, it is said that's when he started sort of having questions about his race, about his background. Ginny said, quote, "He changed a lot. He had a couple of things happen right after high school that made him really aware of racism that he hadn't really thought about as much. And he really had decided that his friends weren't really his friends anymore." So one of those instances came towards the end of Logan's senior year of high school. All right, there was a pretty big incident that happened to Logan that really put this fact that he, wasn't fully white, wasn't even, white passing, really at the forefront of his mind. He was at some party, and some stupid, dumb, ninny little twit started making racist remarks at Logan at this party and making fun of him. Ginny said, quote, he'd been to a party and things hadn't gone well, and he was upset about it because somebody was making remarks to him and his friends didn't stand up for him. He was really, really hurt. Yeah, so apparently this dumb bitch was sitting there making fun of the fact that, like, Logan was part Middle Eastern or something and saying that, like, he should be dancing around the fire and entertaining them and stuff. Yeah, making fun of him for being Middle Eastern and that he should be dancing around, singing and dancing, entertaining all of the white people. I doubt that bitch realized that that was like a double racist remark. Like the awful history this country in particular has with, you know, black people in entertainment. Come on now. But yeah, this stupid dumb bitch making stupid, dumb, idiotic jokes really hurt Logan. And it is said, it is reported that it wasn't so much this dumb broad that really, like, upset Logan. It was the fact that not a single one of his friends shut the bitch down, said anything to stand up for him or stick up for him. And it said that is what really hurt Logan. And man, that's the worst when you realize these people you think are your friends, they're not really your friends like you thought, you know? Oh, I can't imagine what Logan must have been feeling. And it is said, you know, Ginny said that, you know, he didn't really, like, experience that, like, in-your-face racism growing up. And I wonder if part of that had to do with the fact that, you know, he was on the football team, right? Like, if you can, you know, like, entertain, right, on some degree, you kind of get accepted a little bit. I've seen some black people speaking about this in, like, the black community, how, like, you know, as long as you're, like, kind of entertaining in a way, right? Athletes, celebrities, or something like that. You sort of like, your race doesn't really get thrown at you. Yeah, it's just so sad. It's so fucking stupid that, you know, we're here in 2023. This case takes place in 2016, and we're still in this time period where we're having these kinds of like discussions and stuff. I was reading that and I was like, dude, that is fucked. Like, poor Logan. And yeah, it is said that this was one of the first instances where, like, his race was really, like, thrown in his face like that. So fucked, dude. You couldn't pay me enough to go back to high school. Now, it is said Ginny picked Logan up from this party, and that's when he recounted to her, like, you know, what happened. And she said that it was after this party, you know, that he cut off all of his high school friends, like all of them. It didn't matter if they were even at that party or not. He just cut them all off. And to be, like, you know, honest with you, 100%, like, I don't really blame him. I'm kind of one of those people too, where it's like, now you're going to disrespect me and you're going to show that you're not my friend and you're not going to stick up for me. Get fucked. Just do away with a lot of you, you know? So I completely understand that reaction of Logan, right? Which is like, you know what? I'm just going to cut all this trash off. You know what I mean? But like I said, even people who weren't at the party, he also cut off. It seems like he just kind of cut off all of his Tumwater friend group that he had. And again, I get that reaction. I understand that reaction. I obviously don't understand, you know, the context that led to it, of course, but I can certainly understand that reaction over, like, you know what? Just gonna cut all ties. And in fact, Logan was so insistent on, like, just kind of like distancing himself from this part of his life that he actually decided to enroll in Washington State University, which was far, far away. And he decided to do this, like, at the last minute. I guess the plan was to originally go to Eastern Washington University, and he was actually gonna room with a friend that I think he went to high school with, but at the last minute, he, you know, dropped out of there and enrolled in WSU. And it is said one of the reasons that Logan chose this university, on top of just wanting to, like, distance himself from everything in Tumwater, was that, you know, it was said that WSU had, you know, a little bit more of a diverse population, and maybe that would, you know, be beneficial to him. You know what I mean? And look, again, like, as a white person, you know, I can't fully understand or comprehend, right? I can certainly listen and empathize and understand, you know, these issues, but I can certainly understand, like, yeah, wouldn't you want to be surrounded by at least some people that look a little bit like you? Like, that would really suck. And it sounds like this high school party was a big sort of, like, eye-opener for him. And quite frankly, this might have been kind of, like, at the back of Logan's mind his whole life, you know what I mean? And to have it, like, kind of called out, like, at the party would probably be really, really tough. I can't even imagine, like, caring about this kind of shit. Like, why would you make jokes about him being Middle Eastern, you stupid bitch? Something tells me that this chick would be really pissed if Logan Logan decided to make jokes about, you know what, why don't you shut up? Why are you even talking to us and associating? Why don't you get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich? Something tells me she would get offended if Logan made jokes like that. Oh, but we're just joking, bruh. That's how it always goes, right? So yeah, I really don't blame Logan for just wanting a fresh start, you know, and wanting to be around like other people that look like him, at least understand the same struggles. You know what I mean? So don't blame him at all. At all. Logan graduated high school in 2014. Other articles said that he graduated in 2015. That seemed like a weird discrepancy to me. So either 2014 or 2015, Logan graduates. And afterwards, he went to Washington State University, which is located in Pullman, which is about 300 miles away from Tumwater. So yeah, definitely wanting that fresh start. You know what I'm saying? Now, it is said Logan got through his freshman year at WSU before deciding to drop out and moving back home to Tumwater. His Aunt Mary said that Logan had a hard time adjusting to college, and that's why he decided to come back home. Mike, Logan's uncle and Mary's husband, said that he didn't think Logan had like really that great of a time his freshman year. Quote, his first year at college, I think, turned out to be very unpleasant for him, and I don't think he had a lot of friends there. However, Ginny said that Logan had plenty of friends at WSU. In fact, that might have been the problem, is that, like, he had too many friends, and he was spending all of his time partying, not going to class, not turning in homework or anything, and that he actually, like, flunked out and had to come back home, that he guess had flunked so bad that he wasn't allowed to continue his sophomore year. Maybe he was on a scholarship or something, or I'm not sure. That's just what Ginny said, is that he flunked out his freshman year and he couldn't go back for a sophomore year. And I kind of get it. Like, I feel like you see this a lot, right? I feel like you see it especially a lot with kids in high school that didn't have to try nearly as hard as some people, you know? And then when they get to college, it's kind of a different ball game. Not only is there more work, but you're expected to set your own schedule, right? Like, you don't have like your mom and dad or like your teacher on your ass, or remember, this is due this day, blah, blah, blah. Like, nah, dude, professor's like, here's my syllabus. This is when stuff is due. You better check it and you better bring it when it's due. You know what I mean? You know, they might remind you and stuff, but college, for the most part, right, you're kind of on your own. And, you know, I've heard this story of a lot of kids in high school who kind of had an easier time and didn't have to try as hard. They kind of have a hard time adjusting to that part of college. And maybe that was Logan. Maybe he was so used to just kind of skating by in high school and still being able to get really good grades that maybe he thought he could do the same at college, and it turned out he couldn't. So not too sure with that, but either way, Logan completed his freshman year at WSU and then came back home to Tumwater and dropped out. So when Logan moves back home, he moves back in with his grandmother, Ginny, and his older half-sister, Chloe, is living there as well. And when he got home, he pretty much worked like any and all odd jobs that he could find. He worked at a laundering facility for a little bit. I think his aunt said that they would like go to like senior centers and stuff like that and pick up their laundry at night and then, I don't know, I guess go to a facility and do it for them or something, but she said he did that for a while. And he also worked at Mary and Mike's 5-acre farm that was located in Rochester. Quote, I'd have him mowing the fields or cleaning the barns. He was always ready and willing, and this was according to his Uncle Mike. Mary described her nephew as just very quiet and sensitive, and talked about all the work and help that he had provided them on their farm. Quote, I just really enjoyed having him around, and my husband did too. He'd do things like stomp on big spiders for me. He was very helpful. But those who knew Logan noticed that there was a little bit of change of him when he came back from WSU. He was different. He wasn't nearly as outgoing or charming or happy-go-lucky as he once was. And he was also described as being, you know, more withdrawn. Quote, he came into my work and brought an application in, and I was just like, hey, good to see you, how are you doing? And he didn't say much. He kind of got nervous when I saw him. It was very weird. And this was according to Alyssa Parrish, who did know Logan. Not sure if she was like a close friend, acquaintance, classmate, not sure. One high school classmate named Dakota Tresner, who was not at that racist party, said that he did try to reach out to Logan several times via social media or even just texting him. And he said like a lot of Logan's old friends would do this, even ones that weren't at the party, but Logan would just always leave them on read. Quote, I'd contacted him a bunch of times after we graduated. I'd message him on Facebook. He would read them, but never reply. And when I saw there's a show on Investigation Discovery called disappeared. And they did an episode on Logan's case, and Dakota was one of the ones who, like, were interviewed. And he was talking about how, like, yeah, when Logan decided to cut off all of his friends in Tumwater after that racist party, Dakota was one of those friends that he also cut off. And Dakota was talking about, it's just like, well, I wasn't even at the party, and he, like, cut me off, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, but from Logan's perspective, maybe, like, did you call out that racist person via social media or in person or something? Did this racist person run in the general friend group? You know what I mean? Logan maybe just didn't want to deal with it, and so just decided to cut everybody off, avoid all of the drama. Chloe's boyfriend, Jake, also moved in with Ginny, Logan, and Chloe. And it is said that he also had 2 kids as well. Unclear if they lived with Jake full-time or if he, alternated custody with their mother. But either way, Jake was now living in the house. Other reports state that Jake was already living at the house when Logan came back from college. But either way, Jake is living there, and it is said he and Logan did not exactly get along. They were not the best of buds. And it was said may have been a little bit of stress and tension in the household. Quote, they didn't particularly like each other, but they just kind of avoided each other, and this was according to Ginny. And she claims that other people and other family members have really blown Jake and Logan's kind of animosity towards one another way out of proportion. But yeah, who knows? That's just what Ginny says. But Mary, remember, Logan's aunt, said that her nephew had confided in her that he thought Jake was a, quote, problem. But he didn't elaborate. Quote, it was almost like he was afraid to talk about it. So yeah, at this time, he's kind of struggling just a little bit, just kind of trying to figure out his place in life. Ginny said that that's kind of where her nephew was at this point in time, kind of trying to figure stuff out. Quote, he was kind of at a loss with what he was going to do with his life. It is said that Logan was still kind of struggling, coming to terms, questioning his background, his ethnicity and stuff. That was still very much an issue that Logan, was dealing with at the forefront of his mind. He had begun to smoke, everyone said, like, smoke a lot of weed. I'm not sure what exactly that means, but he started, partaking in some marijuana, which Ginny believed made him more paranoid. And that is a real life thing. Like, I've known people who cannot smoke weed because they just get way too paranoid, and it's just not a very good trip, not a good high, you know what I mean? So it's, very possible for marijuana to have that kind of effect on people. Quote, I know he did a lot of smoking pot, and I've wondered sometimes if that caused a little bit of paranoia. It was reported that Logan had told his grandmother that he felt that at times he was being watched, that people were watching him from his, bedroom window, and that he was being followed. And Ginny just thought maybe this was the weed talking. Maybe the weed was just kind of making him a little bit paranoid. Now, it is said, Logan at this time kind of kept to himself, didn't really have friends, kind of stayed in his room mostly, didn't really associate with any close friends or anything, but he did kind of dip his toe a little bit into online dating sites. But he'd only talked to some people. He'd never gone out on a date from one of these sites or met up anyone from one of these sites. So he was just kind of dipping his toe. And approximately a week or so before the events of today's case, around the second week of May of 2016, Logan sent a text to an Oregon woman that he had been talking to, that he had met on one of these sites, and all it said was, quote, I hope to survive this week. And then, the Thursday morning of May 19th, 2016, around 7:30 a.m., Ginny is, she's up and about, just kind of like a normal workday. She's getting ready for work. So it's around 7:30 a.m. She's hustling and bustling around the house. And Logan came inside the house, and he came in from the garage, which kind of surprised Ginny because she was like, oh, I thought he was asleep. And I figured if he would be up this early, he would have, come from his bedroom. But he'd come from the garage. Logan told his grandmother that he had been driving around. And the two kind of talked as Ginny kind of finished getting ready for work. Ginny said Logan seemed really focused this morning, very determined, almost like he had something to do, and he was dead set on getting it done. Ginny said that's sort of like the vibe that she was getting as she was talking to her grandson. Quote, he was just really nervous, which he isn't usually, kind of on a mission. He told her that he would be away that weekend. Quote, I said, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I had an epiphany. I said, okay, what was your epiphany? And he said, well, I can't really explain it. Logan was wearing a black windbreaker, a white shirt, a pair of jeans, and a pair of Nike shoes. And he just seemed on edge. Quote, he was really nervous, and he said he'd had an epiphany, and he was driving around. And I said, well, talk to me tonight when I get back home. And at that moment, Ginny had to leave for work, and she told Logan, well, tell you what, give get home tonight, we'll have a little powwow session and you can tell me all about, like, this epiphany that you had. But unfortunately, this would be the last conversation that Ginny would ever have with her grandson. So later that evening, after Ginny got home, she waited for Logan, but he didn't show up. And when he wasn't home by the next day on Friday, she decided to log on to the computer and ping his cell phone and just see where he was at, because she was a little worried. She's like, this isn't really like Logan. Like, this is weird. So she goes online and tracks his cell phone. Quote, the next day, I pinged his phone, and it pinged near his mom's house, so I thought, well, he went over there, was visiting with her, so that was okay. His phone was pinged near Olympia, where Hannah lived. And so that was why, Ginny was like, oh, I guess he's just visiting his mom, Remember, I said this at the beginning. Hannah was, very much involved in her children's lives. It's not like she straight up abandoned him. Them, I guess I should say. And it said that, yeah, she had a relationship with her children, they visited and talked and all that. So Ginny was like, oh, he's probably just with his mom. But on Sunday, May 22nd, when Logan was still not home, a family member called up Hannah. Other reports state that it was Ginny who actually called her up. And they wanted to see when was the last time Hannah had seen her son. And it said Hannah sent the family into a little mini panic when she said she hadn't seen her son in a week. So Logan had not gone to visit his mother. Other reports state that Hannah was actually contacted like Friday or Saturday, so not too sure with the dates. As we'll get more into this case, there's a lot of conflicting reports. So many different news articles saying different things. So sorry, I might get some things wrong. Maybe we'll blur some things. I'm just relaying what I found. But either way, we know that Hannah was contacted and, said like, I haven't seen my son in a week, So that's when the family starts worrying. It is said Ginny drove all around town all that weekend looking for any sign of Logan. She, made calls to see if anyone had seen or spoken with him, and no one had seen anything. Now, it is said Ginny attempted to file her grandson as a missing person that weekend, and when she went down to the Thurston County Police Department, she found out she couldn't because they were closed / had no one manning the station that weekend. Yeah, so Ginny had to wait until Monday, May 23rd, to report Logan missing, which is already problematic, right? So when Ginny, reported her grandson is missing, one of the first things they do, right, is like, okay, well, let's look in our database. Is he in a hospital? Is he in jail? Like, do we know anything? So when the police put in Logan's information, they got a hit. When they put in Logan's information, including like his license plate, they found that a black 1996 Chrysler Sebring had actually been impounded that past Friday. The car was immediately released to Ginny, and the vehicle, they were told, had been found at along milepost 92, alongside the southbound side of the I-5, which is the Interstate 5 freeway, between Tumwater and Maytown. The police also informed them that when the car was impounded, the car was still in gear. It's a manual. And inside, Ginny found some troubling things. She found Logan's wallet, which contained his driver's license, his debit cards and credit cards, even cash. I think they said it was about like $25 still in his wallet. There were several like bags of food in the car as well, full of like power bars and stuff like that. Some reports state that it looked like maybe like groceries you'd pick up at a gas station. There was another bag containing an empty sandwich wrapper, and in the center console was Logan's cell phone. Quote, he had stuff in the trunk, like a blanket and some clothes and some DVDs, which is kind of weird. Movies. But if he was going to be gone and thought he was going for a couple of days, it kind of made sense, and this was according to Ginny. There had also been no activity on any of Logan's bank accounts, and I do not believe they found an EpiPen. Remember we said earlier that Logan was supposed to be carrying one with him at all times due to his peanut allergy? They didn't find an EpiPen in the car, and it is believed that Logan did not have his EpiPen with him. Another complication in this case was, when Logan's car was found, it was impounded. Right? He wasn't reported as a missing person. It was just like this car found abandoned along the freeway. So when the police had, confiscated it, they had just impounded it and, it wasn't processed for evidence because it wasn't considered to be part of a crime scene or anything like that, right? And so because it had spent a couple of days in impound and I guess maybe different people had handled it or whatever, the police said that they couldn't do any type of forensic search on the vehicle because it was now tainted, That was just so weird to me because I'm like, I don't know how many people would have handled that car? So you've got like the tow truck driver that would have touched it. How many people at the impound yard would have touched it? Like, you would just think that there really like 20 or 30 people that touched that car? I would think that it would just be enough people that you could, run them down, run their prints or whatever, and like eliminate them as suspects and then see what else you find. But yeah, I know when it comes to like forensic stuff, especially if you want to take something to court, it all has to be very on the up and up, right? I just thought it was weird that they didn't do like any kind of forensic search, because like at this point it's like, guys, we don't have anything. Like, why not just search the car? But yeah, there was like a whole list of reasons why they did not process Logan's vehicle even after Ginny's report, and why they did not like really forensically search it. I have to imagine they at least superficially searched it, right? For any clues or something, maybe like blood or something. The next thing police did was track Logan's cell phone activity, all right? So they decided to track his cell phone, see where he had gone that Thursday. So they tracked his cell phone movements starting that Thursday evening, and according to the phone's tracking data and Thurston County Sheriff's Detective Frank Frawley, quote, "We have activity on his phone going down towards I-5 heading south. And then the phone starts heading back up north. And then it heads south again and stops where we've recovered the vehicle. And the cell phone ceased any and all activity, I'm guessing because that's when its battery died, at around 3:45 a.m. that Friday morning." Now, after Logan was reported missing and the story kind of did like the local news rounds, there were several witnesses who had come forward. Other reports state that the police just kind of looked through 911 records around that time period. But either way, there was some more clues. So there were several witnesses who had called 911 and had seen Logan's vehicle. They had seen it that Friday morning on the freeway before it had been impounded. So around 2 p.m., according to several news articles, 3 different individuals called 911, and they were calling to report a black Chrysler Sebring drifting across lanes on the freeway. This was between Tumwater and Maytown, again on the I-5, and near milepost 92, where the car would eventually be impounded from. So it was around this area, all right? There were other sources that said that it was just like one 911 caller, but there were several others that said that there were like 3 people who had called 911 around this time to report this black Chrysler Sebring drifting across lanes on the I-5, all right? Now, this part's going to get a little tricky because I was so confused. There were so many news articles that had different details on the exact sequence of events here, so I'm just going to vomit it all out at you and you can decide. But you can definitely get like the gist of what happened. So, several articles said that these callers reported that the car was driving slow, had drifted across 3 lanes of traffic towards the center divider, and had crashed into that cement barrier, causing, of course, the car to come to a full, complete stop. So they see this car kind of slowing down and then it just drifts towards the center divider and boom. It hits and crashes and stops. Stranger still was the fact that these callers said that it appeared to them when they looked over, they didn't see a driver in the driver's seat. It looked like no one was operating the vehicle. So I'm guessing maybe whoever was there was maybe like, I don't know, ducked down and like steering the car where they couldn't see. I don't know. It was very weird, but that's what was reported. So another witness was a truck driver. He was driving his truck on the northbound side of the I-5 when all of this was happening. And this trucker said that after the car was stopped, he saw a white man with either brown or reddish hair dart out from the passenger side of the car and run into the surrounding woods that surrounded the area. Other reports stated that the trucker reported that he saw the driver's door like open and then close, and saw the man switch seats, like he was in the driver's seat and then he crawled over inside the vehicle to the passenger side, and that's when he shot out. Other articles said that is what the trucker witnessed. Now, Detective Frawley thought this particular statement about seeing the man switch from the driver's side to the passenger side and then get out the car was very strange to him because, when they looked at the car, remember I said that there was like bags of food or whatever? Well, some of these bags were like in the passenger seat, standing up, just kind of there. And Detective Frawley was just kind of like, well, if this guy was dashing from the driver's side to the passenger side and was like super quick about it and stuff, surely he would have like smashed the bags, disturbed them somehow. But the bags were, that are on the passenger seat were still like perfectly fine and upright, like they hadn't been disturbed at all. So Detective Frawley thought this particular fact was weird. And this is where, okay, a little confused because there were other news articles that said the trucker not only saw the dude dash off in the car, but then saw the car take off on its own, making it look like no one was driving it or something. And that's when it veered across lanes of traffic and crashed into the barrier or something. And it was believed that the person who had dashed from the car or something had maybe knocked the car into gear, and that's why it took off again. This is why I was very confused about these particular set of events. There were so many news articles that said so many different things, guys. So many little nuances. So it's okay, the truck driver sees the guy get out of the car, but other reports said that no, he saw the car crash and then the guy get out of the car, and then so he sees the guy get out of the car, but then the car goes off on its own because he left it in gear, and that's when it veered across the highway. I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of these events specifically because of the way it was reported on. So that's why I'm just kind of relaying to you everything that I came across. But one thing that, we do know for sure is that Logan's car drifted across the freeway and crashed. That we know for a fact. There seems to be some at least debate on what the trucker actually saw. Did he see someone dart from that car? That seems to be sort of a big question mark. So yeah, hope that did not confuse you. I just wanted to relay everything that I found. And hey, maybe there's someone out there who has more information. Sometimes that happens where I'll, say something on, my videos because it's what I came across or whatever. And someone will correct me and be oh, well, this is wrong. This actually happened. And yeah, I appreciate that because yeah, dude, media ain't gonna get anything right, especially nowadays. They don't care about getting the story right. So yeah, not sure about that, but we do know Logan's car did veer across lanes of traffic and crash. But yeah, I was very confused on what this trucker saw. He saw the car crash and then the guy get out, or he saw the guy get out of the car and then the car veered off the freeway and crash. I don't know, it was weird. But there was one article that had a quote from Detective Frawley, and he said, quote, "We found out the vehicle's been recovered, and then we get the story of some witnesses saying they saw a subject running out from the vehicle. And for it to be abandoned on the interstate and hit the Jersey barrier, that's weird as well. One of the witnesses said the vehicle had veered towards the center lane and hit the barrier and stopped. Right in the middle of the highway. He sees somebody jump out of the passenger side of the vehicle. Initially, he said a white male, but basically a male, and then he ran towards the woods off the interstate." Yeah, so not sure the exact sequence of events here. That is what I came across in my research. And Frawley reiterated about the bags of food and how if somebody, went from the driver's side to the passenger side, surely that would have been disturbed. Quote, "One of the curious things was in the center console of the vehicle were some bags, grocery bags, which kind of led us to believe that if somebody was on the driver's side going over to the passenger side, those bags would have been knocked down. So there might have been two people and the truck driver only saw one person." Later that same evening, that same Monday evening, when they've discovered it was Logan's car and he's reported missing and all that, there was a report of a naked male, a teenager, reportedly, in the area where all this happened, and he was, I guess, running around naked or something, but the identity of this person remains unknown. Quote, "We thought that might have been Logan as well, and so they did initiate a search using dogs. They didn't locate anything. Could have been Logan. Could have been anybody." So after all these reports, right, after this initial investigation, cell phone records, these witnesses and all that, police searched a 2-mile radius area around the place where Logan's car was found. They specifically focused on the woods. It's Washington State, so there's beautiful woods and forest everywhere, and there was thick, dense brush and woods that surrounded both sides of the I-5 here. Mike Ware, Logan's uncle, was a retired Thurston County sheriff's lieutenant, and he also helped and aided in the search for his nephew. Quote, "I've actually covered considerable distance on both sides. Some of the area is extremely brushy and very hard to get through. Some of it's open. So far, there's been nothing to indicate that he's come to harm, but there's also been nothing to indicate that he's okay." Mike said that he couldn't think of any reason why Logan would voluntarily just kind of up and leave everyone and everything. Quote, "He lived a comfortable life. He lived in a nice house with all the comforts of home." And he said he was particularly disturbed by, the fact that Logan's wallet with money and his cell phone and driver's license was still in the car. That really worried him. And, with him being a retired sheriff's lieutenant, Mike posited that, I don't know what the circumstances is, but I don't believe Logan left of his own free will. Mary was equally questioning everything and was just as, disturbed about her nephew's disappearance. Quote, "Every 10 minutes I'm saying to my husband, maybe this happened, or maybe this happened, but I have no idea. There just doesn't seem to be an explanation." And unfortunately, even with the aid of dogs and helicopters and lots of volunteers and police searching, they didn't find a bloody clue around that area. They found nothing. Quote, "The area is extremely thick and brushy. I've spent hours out there searching myself. Canines were brought in to search, and it's been covered extensively, but nothing has been found," and this was according to Mike. People were starting to, start positing their own ideas, what could have caused Logan to just suddenly disappear? And one of the theories that was brought out towards, the early days of this investigation was that maybe Logan had some sort of, mental health emergency or issue. Maybe he kind of had a mental break or something. Sergeant Carla Carter of the Thurston County Sheriff's Office said, quote, "We're not sure what happened, but there was some indication, perhaps, of some burgeoning mental health issues." And yeah, I don't know if that is supposed to be in relation to sort of Logan having a little bit of this, they describe it as an identity crisis as he's questioning that. I don't know if that seems to be the only indicators that could lead to this possible explanation. I couldn't find anything else about Logan experiencing any other mental health issues or something like that. But yeah, that's what they say, is that, maybe he had a mental break because of all these questions and stuff that he was facing in his life at the moment. But 1 week later, there seemed to be maybe some hope. Maybe there was a clue. Logan's Facebook status updated. Quote, "He did a check-in on his Facebook page at the Olympia Regional Airport, but they went to the airport and couldn't find anything. And it was also reported that this Facebook status where he checked in, it wasn't even a current status. All it was one of those stupid memories that Facebook puts in your face all the time, and it was a memory from a year ago, so it wasn't even an actual lead, and they wasted time. Leads and clues dried up super quickly in this case. Logan's family even hired a private investigator, but there was really nothing for the investigator to go on, so that didn't lead anywhere either. So with leads scarce and clues practically non-existent, Logan's family decided to reach out to the internet and see if they could bring some awareness to Logan's case and see if anybody knew anything. They launched a huge internet campaign, begged anyone with any sort of information, no matter how irrelevant it may seem, to come forward. And at this point, it is said they were so desperate for anything, guys. They were just asking for anything, any kind of help. They established a Facebook page called Logan Schiendelman is Missing, and it grew to over 6,500 members by June. Local volunteers actually managed to raise a $10,000 reward in any information that led to a conclusion in Logan's case. And I guess one of the ways that volunteers were able to raise funds was they would sell bracelets with Logan's name and the date that he was last seen at Tumwater High School football games. And in addition to Logan's name and the May 19th date was the acronym NGU and NGU, which was the football team's slogan, and it stands for Never Give Up, Never, Never Give Up. And it was selling these kinds of bracelets that they were able to raise the reward money. In July, a group of about 20 volunteers ended up gathering at the Community Youth Services Center in downtown Olympia to raise awareness about Logan's disappearance. In addition to the hundreds of others that were also missing in the state of Washington, it was this awareness campaign that they were going to do for all of the missing people in Washington, and Logan was one of those. So the group came together and made about 563 ribbons, one representing each missing person in the state of Washington. They planned on pinning the ribbons up all over Thurston County and just hoping to raise awareness. Event organizer Jennifer Champlin said that the idea of these ribbons was sort of twofold, had two purposes. One was to, bring awareness and remind the community that these people were still missing. These people had loved ones and friends who wanted to know where they were. And second was for them to serve as sort of a thank you to law enforcement and kind of a reminder to them, hey, this person is still missing. We thank you for, everything you do. This person is still missing though. She said, quote, "I want to re-inspire them to get out there and look. There are so many cases that are sitting on a shelf somewhere. They need to be dusted off and rejuvenated." A volunteer named Rhonda Hanning actually showed up to make a ribbon specifically for Logan. Her godson had actually played football with Logan in high school. And she said, quote, "When I heard about Logan, I thought, oh my God, I have to help. What if something like this happened to someone closer to me? What if it had been my godson? son. Rhonda said that she had met Logan and was actually working with Logan's aunt in trying to, work on his case and try to find him. I wasn't unclear if this aunt was Aunt Mary. The article just said Logan's aunt. There were even more fundraising efforts that were put on to kind of help Logan's family with expenses in trying to keep his case alive and, all that kind of stuff, like putting up signs all around and stuff like that. One of these events included like a huge garage sale that happened. There was a lot of donated items, and it was held in August in Olympia at Monica Stutzman's house. She had volunteered her house to be sort of like the host of this like huge garage sale. Quote, I find it really odd that someone dumped his car on I-5. Where did he go? And why did someone else have his car? And why were all of his belongings in the car? I just can't imagine if that was my child. I would lose my mind. It's a good cause, and if we can find out more about him and where he's at, that would be helpful. And I know if I were in the same situation, I would want any help I could get. In September, Crime Stoppers placed multiple ads in local papers highlighting Logan's case, asking for any information. Lacey Police Detective John Mason wrote the little blurb for the ad, and it ran for a few months in the local papers. In October, 5 months after Logan had disappeared, Jake, remember Jake, Chloe's live-in boyfriend, had violated his probation, and so, was brought down to the police. And they decided this would be a good opportunity to question him about Logan's disappearance. Since Jake and Logan didn't really get along, that seemed to be the only person that Logan didn't actively get along with. They were like, well, this is a good opportunity to question Jake and see if he knows anything. They also wanted to question Jake because he did have a history of domestic violence. He had pled guilty to some assault and domestic violence charges in 2013. They did not involve Chloe. They involved another woman. And so, yeah, with all those little sort of circumstantial things, they decided it would be a good idea while they had him there to just kind of question him. Mike and Mary, Logan's aunt and uncle, were also suspicious of him. Remember, Mike was an ex-cop, and Mike is not a fan of Jake. He was very suspicious of Jake and wanted cops to home in on him and ask him questions because he thought Jake knew something. But after being interrogated and passing a polygraph examination, Jake was dropped from the list of suspects or persons of interest. Detective Frawley said, quote, I asked him if he was responsible for the disappearance of Logan, and I asked him if he knew who was responsible for the disappearance of Logan, and he answered no to both questions, and my opinion was that he was not showing any deception when I asked those questions. So that potential lead was kaput. In January of 2017, 8 months after Logan had disappeared, Sergeant Carter outright admitted to the public that the police were completely out of leads on this case. It was dead in the water. Quote, all leads have been exhausted at this point. The case remains open and active, and any tip we receive is thoroughly investigated. And as we kind of alluded to earlier, right, there were several missing people in Thurston County, and the police were saying in the vast majority of those cases, the missing was found, but there were some cases, like Logan's, where nothing was being found. Quote, in a majority of missing persons cases, we're lucky enough to find people relatively quickly. But of course, there are those ones where we never learn what happened to them or the case ends tragically. As a police officer, those ones really bug you. And this was according to Olympia Police Department Lieutenant Paul Lauer. Or maybe it's Lower. It's literally spelt like lower, so it's either Lauer or Lower. But Logan's family and friends, they refused to give up. They still posted flyers everywhere. Mary, as we mentioned earlier, was very active in the search for her nephew. Quote, even if he contacted us and told us that he didn't want to come back, that would be something. But I think that if he could call one of us, he would, especially his mother. Mary spoke about how, with each day that passed and Logan's still missing and no answers was just really hard on his family. She spoke about how even 8 months later, the shock of all this was still very much alive. Quote, personally, I am still in a bit of a shock over the whole thing. We're all just completely frustrated and worried. We're all going through sleepless nights, wondering if we could have found him if we'd done something different. Oh, I bet, dude. I bet. Just sitting there going over the, what ifs. Oh, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? And, that would just be terrible. There were many who debated, and still do to this day, whether that man dashing from Logan's car wasn't Logan himself. So if, you go on Reddit, and you see discussions of this in the true crime subreddits, there's some discussion threads there with Logan's case. And there are many, the prevailing, belief on Reddit anyway, was that the man, the truck driver saw dashing from the car was in fact Logan. And that, the trucker said it was a white guy because, Logan's, lighter skinned. So, of course, as you're on a freeway going, 60, 70 miles an hour and you see someone dashing, like, yeah, you wouldn't see, like, a black man, especially because Logan is so light-skinned. Which, I don't know, I just thought that was a little silly. Like, dudes, like, you should read the comments. The authority with which these people speak cracks me up. Well, it was obviously Logan. Duh. He was, like, a light-skinned. It wasn't some white guy. It was Logan. That, obviously. Like, you should see these comments. It's literally how they speak. Like, it's obviously Logan. Duh. And it's like, you don't know jack shit. Like, it just cracks me up. It's like, wait a minute. You're not even from the area. You don't know what this patch of freeway looks like. You don't know if there's a bunch of obstructions that could have blocked the view. You don't know it, like, it just cracked me up with the authority with which these people, like, spoke. But that seems to be the dominant theory on Reddit, is that it was Logan who was dashing from his own car. Personally, I don't know how much I believe that, especially if you look at Logan and, like, I don't know, like, I'm very much aware of, like, the road in front of me when I'm driving, so I try to, take a purview, make sure there's no surprises coming up, right? And I don't see how you could ever mistake Logan for a white dude. Like, I really don't, honestly. But Mary wondered that, okay, if that was Logan dashing from the car, why on earth would he leave, like, his driver's license and his wallet and his cell phone behind? That seemed to be, like, the biggest red flag to his family. Quote, 19-year-old boys just don't seem to function without their phones. At least he didn't. By this time, the Facebook page that the family had made had grown to about 8,600 members. And Mary would constantly post updates about Logan's case, or, just kind of like a flyer that they had put up or something. Just trying to keep the page active. Rhonda still helped out as well. I guess she primarily helped organize, like, fundraising events. Quote, sometimes people get forgotten, but we don't want that to happen with Logan. A candlelight vigil was held for Logan on January 19th, 2017 at Mountain View Church in Tumwater. Quote, it's been pretty bleak lately for the family. There's just not a whole lot of information. We're hoping this renews everyone's strength to continue looking for Logan, and this was according to Rhonda. She was also talking about how at that time they were working out a deal with a landowner who owned some land, like, right off the freeway, and they wanted to put up, like, a huge sign with, Logan, his information, and, like, a number to call right where, like, his car had been found. And when she did this interview right here that I just quoted from, she was saying that they were in the process of negotiating a deal with the landowner to hang this large sign, and the next thing they were going to do was work on fundraising to get money for that sign. Well, we have to keep his face out there in case someone looks at it and says, I know him. Then, in July of 2017, more than a year after Logan had disappeared, police released a new sketch. It was a sketch of a man they believed may have information about Logan. They also relayed the description of another man that they were seeking for questioning, but he did not have a composite sketch. And Detective Frawley said that this composite sketch and the new descriptions had been generated from a new lead they had received. That tip was a woman who said that she was driving on the I-5 on the morning that Logan was last seen, and she said that she saw Logan's car pulled off on the side of the freeway. It was by exit 95, and she saw a young man who she now believed was Logan standing at the back of his car with two white males. She described one of the men as 6 feet tall, thin build, blonde hair. The hair was cut in like a loose bowl cut, and he was wearing a tank top that was too tight for him and jean shorts that were too small for him. And this was the man that police had released a composite sketch of. She said the other man had about shoulder-length blonde hair and was wearing a flannel shirt with jeans. But she said she only saw that second man from kind of like from the side, like a side profile, and there wasn't enough like detailed information to release a composite sketch about him. But they released a composite sketch on that other dude, and I'm sorry, like, does this thing not freak you out at all? Like, I saw that composite sketch, I was like, dear God, is that a human? It is freaky. This thing freaks me out. Like, it is a creepy composite sketch. The same woman said on her way home that same day, she was, driving on the freeway, opposite way this time, of course, and she remembered seeing that same car on the side of the freeway, only now there was nobody around and the hood was open and propped up. But unfortunately, 0 leads were produced with this. Like, composite sketch led to nothing. Her witness testimony led to nothing. And at this point, Detective Frawley was refusing to state whether he believed Logan was alive or dead. Quote, I have no reason to believe he's been killed. I have no reason to believe he's alive. He can very well just be out there right now wanting to be left alone. And according to Detective Frawley, it is said that at this point in time, Logan's family had kind of broken into two camps in relation to his disappearance. Quote, you have one part of the family saying there's somebody responsible, and the other side of the family that is saying nobody's responsible. So Mike spoke out, his uncle, and said that, based on his prior law enforcement experience, he would still be questioning Jake and have Jake on his list of suspects. And at this point in time, I wasn't sure if Jake was still with Chloe. But yeah, Mike was very suspicious of Jake, mainly due to, the hostilities between him and Logan, the fact that Jake has a history of violence, and it just didn't smell right to Mike as a former cop. That's what he was saying. Quote, if it were in the home, would be the tension and hostility that's going on with his sister and her boyfriend. He was very upset about the boyfriend living in the home. And Mike didn't seem to care that Jake had passed a polygraph either. He did not really think much of polygraphs. Quote, polygraphs aren't perfect. There's a possibility he could pass a polygraph somehow without being truthful. And, to be fair, that is true. And there were also theories floating about that, maybe Logan's drug use could tie into his disappearance. Quote, we don't know if he maybe owed people money, or if he might have gotten some bad drugs, or maybe does some other drugs. And this was according to Detective Frawley. And I guess what helped fuel this speculation right here, the whole drug theory, was that a few weeks into the investigation, the authorities had gotten a tip. It was from a witness who said that they were driving on the road that was parallel to the 5. So it wasn't on the 5, it was one of those roads off on the side that kind of ran parallel with it. And so this witness, said he was driving. It was around 3 a.m. on May 21st. And the witness said that he allegedly saw a black man kind of running around with no pants on. And because this was an area in a neighborhood that was sort of a known drug neighborhood, there was known crack houses and stuff where this witness said he saw this supposed half-naked black man. That's kind of what helped fuel this theory about did he get into drugs or something? Could that have been a Logan he'd seen? But this tip that this witness gave police yielded nothing, and police quickly ruled out that kind of line of investigation into Logan's disappearance. They couldn't find anything that tied him with any drugs. There was also another family member. She was described as a great aunt to Logan, and her name was Tina Crary. And she offered up her own theory as to why Logan disappeared. Quote, maybe he saw this as the only way to get out of this conflict, this dysfunctional family of his. And Tina here, as you can see from her picture, is black, and she was part of the black side of Logan's family, Hannah's father's side of the family. And it is said that Logan spent the majority of his life not knowing anything about his father, but only a short time before he would disappear would Logan learn sort of the truth about his conception, how he came to be, and, about his father and stuff. All article said was a short time before he would disappear. So I don't know if we're talking days, weeks, months, or years, but it certainly seems that Logan spent the majority of his life not knowing anything about his father. And Tina said, right before Logan would go away to college, he had actually met up with her. Quote, I showed him a picture of his grandfather, my older brother, and he stared at it. He said, it feels good to see someone that looks like me. Isn't that just that tore my heart when I read that? I can't imagine, man. Can you imagine, I'm sure he loves his family, the white side of his family and stuff, but to not grow up with anyone looking anything like you or having anything to relate to on that level, God, that would suck. I'm sorry. And I'm speaking as someone who's kind of always dealt with kind of feeling different because of social awkwardness or mental health issues or something. I can't imagine how it would be, on the racial side, growing up with nobody, looking like you, just growing up around white people, your family, primarily white, I don't know. That almost brought me to tears when I read that. I was like, oh, that's fucking sad, man. It's sad and sweet at the same time. Tina said that Jenny cut all sides of that family off when her and Hannah's father had broken up. And Tina said that Jenny cut all ties with the family very shortly after Hannah had been born. And she said when Logan came to see her, he was very, very anxious and curious to know about that side of, his heritage, of his family. Who wouldn't? She said, quote, he wanted some answers and he wasn't getting them at home. And Tina said that when Logan came to see her, he told her that he didn't want to tell Jenny about this visit. Quote, he said, if she finds out that that I came here, she's going to be really mad. Ginny, however, she completely denies this. She denies that Logan wanted to hide anything from her, denies that she would be pissed off that he would go and see the side of his family, and she claims that Logan told her about this meetup with his Aunt Tina. Quote, I don't think that's true either. They made no effort to get a hold of him and see him, and I had pretty much not talked to his grandfather in years and years and years, so there was just no connection. I wasn't actively trying to keep him away. And yeah, Ginny said that, Logan did not hide this meetup with Tina from her, that he did tell her about it. She was aware of it. And Ginny claims that Logan actually told her he was kind of complaining about Tina a little bit, according to Ginny. All right, so Ginny says that Logan told her about this meetup with his Aunt Tina, and that he was kind of taken aback by, how much Tina was complaining and bitching about Ginny, I guess. And according to Ginny, this made Logan, kind of uncomfortable, because he was like, wait, why are you, trash-talking the, solid parental figure in my life that has raised me and my sister? I don't get it. And that this had kind of turned him off a little bit. That is what Ginny says Logan told her. But Logan did keep in touch with Tina, at least via social media. When he went over there that one time, that was the only time he had physically met her. Tina said that she noticed after Logan dropped out of college, it seemed, at least based on his social media posts, that he was still trying to sort of discover and dig into, this part of his identity. She said that he shared, lots of quotes of Malcolm X and MLK, with one of his favorites of MLK's being, if you want something, you better make some noise. And so to Tina, she said it seemed to her that, he was still sort of going on this journey of figuring out, who he was and, all of that. It was still very much something that was at the forefront of his mind. Again, at least based on his social media posts. In April of 2018, that's when Investigation Discovery highlighted Logan's case on that series Disappeared. And in it, the family just begs for any information. They highlighted the $10,000 reward that is still very much active. And they also, reiterated that, no matter what happened, no matter what Logan may have done, experienced, or whatever, all they wanted was for him to come home. They even said, in the episode, if Logan doesn't want to come home or whatever, we wouldn't make him. All we want to know is that he is alive and well. You know what I mean? Just really making it clear that they just want to know what happened to him. If he had, done as Tina suggests, that maybe he up and decided to distance himself from his family, that's fine. Just please call them and let them know he was alive. They're so desperate for answers. It was so sad. In February of 2020, there was a glimmer of hope that maybe Logan's body had been found. So a longshoreman had found male human remains in some blackberry bushes. Very, very thick bushes. They were along the Weyerhaeuser dock, which was located in Longview, Washington. However, 2 years later, 2 years. So the remains were discovered in 2020. And in 2022, police finally released a composite sketch of the remains, that how they believed, this person looked based on the bone structure and stuff. You know how they do that? And the composite sketch was that they were theorizing that these remains belonged to either a white or Hispanic male. And the composite sketch, of course, looks nothing like Logan. So there went that any type of hope, which is kind of one of those things, right? It's it's good that they didn't find Logan's body, because that means that there's a potential he's alive, right? But at the same time, it was they thought maybe they could get some kind of closure, or at least have Logan home. By 2021, the reward offered for any information in Logan's case had increased to $15,000. And in May of 2023, Logan's case was featured on Dateline NBC's podcast, Missing in America. And his family did some interviews and stuff. Like I said, they've been really trying to keep his case active and alive, it's been 7 years, and they don't want people to forget about Logan. Quote, it really has never left our minds from day one. We're always pretty conscious of it just about every day. To be gone, it's a loss for everyone, not just his family. And this was according to his uncle Mike. And he talked about that was why they did any media interview and stuff, just anything that they could to keep his case, in the public sphere. Quote, every time we speak with the media, it brings a little bit of hope and that we'll see the end of it or a solution. And we always hope for some reason that he would be able to come back. Mary described not knowing what happened to her nephew as being in a kind of purgatory. Quote, I think it's called ambiguous loss. You're kind of stuck in the middle. You're kind of in purgatory. And, with Logan being gone for so long and no clear answers or evidence or anything, there are, of course, many theories that have been posited as to what happened to Logan. And we've gone over a few of them. So one theory suggests what his Aunt Tina did, that Logan simply ran away and decided to go start a new life elsewhere. And this theory is mainly fueled by the fact that, Logan was in a very vulnerable emotional state when he disappeared, with the racism he had experienced, with being able to meet the black side of his family, coupled with this epiphany that he talked about right before he disappeared. Those who believe this theory kind of take all those and kind of were like, well, I think maybe he just took off because he just couldn't handle what was going on in his life right there, right at that moment. People who believe this theory wonder if maybe he's living somewhere just under an assumed identity. Others wonder if perhaps he didn't fly to Saudi Arabia to try and track down his father. But Ginny kind of puts a squash on this particular theory, saying that our passports were expired and we hadn't renewed them. Plus, he left his driver's license and his wallet and cash behind. If you're going to travel to another country, don't you think you would be taking some of those things? Another theory that we alluded to, had something to do with drugs. Whether using, dealing, possibly both. This theory seems to be primarily fueled by the fact that Logan smoked weed. And those who tend to believe this theory think that it is possible maybe Logan dived into deeper drugs and maybe he overdosed. Maybe that's what happened to him. Maybe he got into harder drugs and owed somebody money, either from using or dealing. And, we said this earlier, police did investigate this angle. They really did. And they found nothing to corroborate any type of drug deal or drug dealing or harder drugs being used in Logan's life. Another theory that people put out there in this case is that Logan had a mental break. They think maybe with the struggling of his identity and dealing with that, maybe the stress between him and Jake just finally culminated into him snapping. People who believe this theory think that maybe that's why he started smoking a lot of weed. Maybe he was just, trying to cope with the stress, but unfortunately the weed made him super paranoid because he thought people were watching him. And it is thought maybe just all this, culminated to the point that he finally had his break. And maybe he's either out there living on the street somewhere, or maybe he's hospitalized somewhere, or it's possible, maybe he's dead somewhere. And the final theory that a lot of people throw out in regards to this case is, of course, that Logan met with foul play. People who believe this theory think that Logan was more than likely murdered. Remember, we already talked about it. His uncle Mike already said that he is publicly suspicious of Jake. And he has stated that he thought it was actually pretty ludicrous and outrageous that they would completely drop Jake just because he passed a simple, polygraph. And people who believe this theory, that he may have had come into contact with foul play, also point to the two white dudes that he was, seen with by that woman. If we're to take her account, seriously and truthfully, did those two white guys do something to him? Do they know what happened to him? Could it have been a robbery gone wrong? A drug deal gone wrong? Could it have just been a fight? Who knows? But a lot of people wonder, if those two white guys that Logan was seen with had something to do with it. And yeah, that's about all we know about the disappearance of Logan Schiendelman. And now I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think happened to Logan? What do you think about these 4 predominant theories that, is discussed here? Personally, I can believe either he had a mental break, for whatever reason. Mental breaks happen, guys. They happen all the time. I know some people were saying that, with him being paranoid and acting different, it could be, was he developing schizophrenia, which, does seem to present itself in males in their late teens and early 20s. I read some research about that. And so, maybe he did develop schizophrenia, maybe he had a mental break or something, but I could believe that. I think there's enough kind of factors there that we know of that, maybe he simply had a mental breakdown. I honestly think that's, the best case theory because, maybe he's just living on the street somewhere. There was a story just a couple months ago in LA of some kid who had schizophrenic, issues, and he had just disappeared. He had just walked off and disappeared one day, and his family couldn't find him, and he was finally found. I forget how long he was missing, months or years, I can't remember, but they finally found him, and he had had a mental break and was living in a homeless encampment. So I don't know, maybe that's what happened to Logan? The other theory that I could believe is that, unfortunately, he came into contact with some foul play because there's just so many questions we don't know. I don't really believe Tina's theory that he just kind of upped and walked away. I just feel like there's so many other like low-key ways to just kind of disappear. And why would you leave your ID and cash and stuff? Like, that's just very weird to me. It's not, beyond the realm of believability or anything, but yeah, I feel like, I don't know, like he would at least leave a goodbye note or something. I don't know. And then, yeah, the whole drug thing, that's just stupid. It's just dumb. Like, yeah, the police looked into that. There's nothing that ties him into drugs at all. I love, like, how in media, whenever someone does drugs, first of all, it's always labeled, they did drugs. And it's like, you look into it and it's like, oh no, they smoked a little weed and maybe drank once in a while. Like, I don't know, just the way media spins it. So I think that theory is just ludicrous. But yeah, like, what's up with these two white dudes? Did they have something to do with it? Do they know something? Like, what the heck? And that truck driver, who did he see dashing from Logan's car? I have a hard time believing that he mistook Logan for a white dude. Like, you've seen pictures of Logan. I've shown plenty of pictures of him here. How could you ever mistake him for a white dude with like brown or red hair? So I don't know. I personally think if that trucker's account is to be believed and taken at face value, I don't think it was Logan dashing from that car. I really don't, honestly. And if we're going to go with the foul play, angle, it certainly, like, fits, you know what I mean? Like the two white dudes. I know the woman said that the two dudes had kind of like blondish hair, but other reports said that she stated it was kind of like dirty blonde or whatever. And so like hair color is something I could see that you would probably kind of maybe get a little wrong if you're on the freeway going super fast and you're looking over and seeing something. But yeah, Logan was pretty dark skinned. I don't know how you could mistake him, or at least dark skinned enough that like I feel like you wouldn't mistake him for a white person. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's so sad. Like, he was going through such just that growing pains part of life that so many people go through, right? Where it's just like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I? What do I want to do? What's life? You know what I mean? And he was like right at that stage of life, trying to figure it all out, and then this happens. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully one day soon we'll get more information in this case. I mean, there's breaks and cases that are years old all the time. The Crystal Rogers case, there's a break in that recently. So fingers crossed that soon, very, very soon, we will know what happened to Logan. Maybe he, will just come out one day and be like, yeah, I had a mental break or something, It's so sad. Like, not to know, not even to have a body, not even to have any clues, no leads whatsoever. That would drive me like nuts. It really would. Like, I think that would really play with my mental health. So thank you again to Taryn McNeil and my dad for sliding this case my way. I really, really hope that we can find out what happened to Logan. I mean, God, I hope it was just like a mental break and he's out there alive somewhere, Like, even if it is on the streets, like, at least he would be alive. I don't know. It's so sad, man. Like, what he was going through at that point in his life, it's just heartbreaking. And I really do. I hope there's a break in this case, and I hope we can find out what happened to Logan. And with that, I guess I will let you all go until we meet again in 2 weeks. Try to stay safe and happy out there. Try to enjoy the fall season, the Halloween season. And remember, whenever you're out there in the world interacting with another human being, kind of like as we touched on in this case, you have no idea what people are going through. So don't be a dick. Be a decent person. Be that beautiful unicorn that we know you are, and leave a little sparkle wherever you go. You never know what someone is going through and what your little sparkle can do, whether it's just a smile, opening a door for someone. You never know what that can do for someone's day. Alrighty, y'all. Take care. I will see you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.